Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and we have reached the end of September, ladies and gentlemen, and it's felt like it's been going on forever. Which, yeah. But on the plus side, I get to talk about a video I wanted to do for a long time, but I've been fine-tweaking the list a little bit. It's another boss list, and this one, it's one I don't see a lot of people talking about. We're going high in the sky as...
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
It is playing Come Fly With Me, right?
Come fly with me.
Okay, just making sure. I'm talking about flying bosses, and these ones are used a lot in a lot of RPG games with either dragons, giant winged beasts, giant bats, or sometimes in other games it's flying vehicles or basically something in between of that. And these high flying bosses basically give a good challenge, whether we are having a literal aerial fight with them or if we're stuck on the ground and gotta bring them down to earth. Clipping these bosses' wings is always something that's either inventive, creative, most of all, pretty ingenious. Like, I miss games where they had like boss fights that had their own unique spin. But some of them, as of recent years, have been somewhat similar, which kind of sucks. So I'm hoping in future games, bosses that take to the skies and give us a really fun challenge would return. But in the meantime, these are my top 13 flying bosses. Now, again, criteria as always. Bosses I've beaten, games I've played, one per series, and I'm mostly going on by a different kind of criteria, like I kind of do with certain bosses. For example, if they stay so much in the air, but they don't really do a lot to change it up, depending on the game, then they'll be lower on the list. But the more agile they are in the air and the more uniqueness of how they do it, because if it's just a boss that just goes in the air by floating and just standing there while doing like basic stuff like throwing sword slashes or mystical blasts at you, then it's kind of docking a little points. How well does the aerial aspect of the boss implement the fight, and how do we combat it as, you know, that makes it even... You guys know what I'm saying. How does the aerial aspect of the boss fight affect the overall enjoyment of said boss fight and make us think of how to take down the boss? And with that being said, once again, why top 13? Because here on the Game Hub, only the odd can be number one. So let's fly high in this. Oh wait, Anyway, like I said, let's fly high in this list and start it off. Well, it's almost Halloween time, and this is a game I don't get to talk about that much. From the prequel to Tim Burton's most acclaimed movie ever, The Pumpkin King, Nightmare Before Christmas. A Game Boy Advance game that was basically a platformer that had a lot of boss fights. Basically, Oogie Boogie takes over the town. We've never met him before, and we gotta defeat his bug bosses. One thing I will say about this game is how well they do backtracking for levels. And that comes in later. Apparently, there's been a toxic gas that makes the vampire think he's a vegetarian. So we go to investigate, and the said gas is coming from Jack's house, which the mayor thankfully locked all the doors. Thanks. But as we go further into Jack's house, we discover the Moth. This boss is one of the better done of the insect bosses because its whole gimmick. It's flying around the entire time, and while it's doing so, it spits out poison balls at us to hurt us. It crashes down on us, so we'll have to like duck and cover. And it also creates the purple mist, where if it hits us, our actions are backwards. So again, if we want to go left, it goes right. It goes right, we go left. and all of that good confusing moments. It's a fun boss that if done in a different game with a little bit more graphics, and again, this was from the Game Boy Advance, so I'm giving it leeway. But at the same time, it's really cool. Added to the fact that as we damage it, its toxic blood will fill up the room with the pool of it and damage us even further. You heard me right. Toxic blood fills the room. This is a kid's game, right? Anyway, the boss fight is really, really fun. It doesn't add much to the atmosphere of a flying boss, considering we're stuck indoors of Jack's house. But on the plus side, pretty good way to start off this list with a insectoid boss fight that is actually pretty cool. I hope other games do bosses like this and utilize an insect's special properties and implement it into the boss fight. Well, flying boss fight, something very unique, something most likely we haven't done in ever. Is there one from a game I haven't talked about in years, but something that's still kind of relevant right now? Yep, I was waiting for that. For Cybertron was a fresh take on the Transformers license. It didn't have to utilize a movie or utilize a existing show. It gave us a fresh take on the story and no humans, which is why so many people loved it and why I kind of want a remaster or another game with this exact same thing. Sadly, it had to take them 14 years before we get another great Transformers project without any humans. Why am I talking about that? Because the first chapter of the Autobot story, at the end of it, we get to go toe-to-toe, or, okay, not really toe, but you guys know what I mean, with the Commander of the Sky and future traitor, Starscream. Starscream's boss fight is what a flying boss revels in and what it should want to be. Constantly, mostly in his jet mode as he floats around the battlefield, he will obviously continue to shoot us and jet around the area, making it a little bit hard for us to kind of get a fix on him. And plus, he doesn't go down that easy. So save up your ammo, because you run out of ammo, there'll be other weapons lying around the area, but make sure you hit dead on or you're not going to do well. And of course, this being a Transformers game, he's obviously not staying in his jet mode the whole fight. He will transform into his robot mode, start shooting at you, and sending out bombardment bombs all over the area as he spins. So, yeah, being the first boss, okay, technically not true because there is the Decepticon story, which you should do first, and then you play the Autobots last, because that's how it goes in order. But overall, yeah, the Starscream boss fight is really challenging. It's really cool. I just wish that he would kind of float in the air a little bit more in robot mode a little bit more. And I know it's something I gripe about having either soldiers or minions or other enemies flooding the field for a boss fight. But if Thundercracker and Skywarp were there as well as fodder a little bit, but the main focus would be Starscream. So if they transform into their jet modes and they scramble around, so you have to keep your eye on which one. But overall, again, Starscream's boss fight is a good example of how a flying boss can be utilized for the Transformers series. And I gotta replay this game when I get the chance, but I'm already backlogged on so much other stuff. So, again, Starscream, more than meets the eye, and a great boss fight that showcases that. You know, there are times in a boss fight or in a video game where they kind of change the formula of what they do once in a while. For example, in Kingdom Hearts half the time, when we think we'll be battling a Heartless, we'll be battling a Disney villain. When in the God of War series, when we think we'll be fighting a god, we will be fighting a giant monster of myth. In Persona 5, when we think we'll have to fight the owner of the palace, we end up fighting a monster of her own creation. For those of you who know the theme and know what I'm talking about, I am talking about cognitive Wakaba Ishiki. Ishiki? Wakaba Ishiki. Okay, thank God I got it right. Who is our not yet hacker Futaba's deceased mother? Where throughout the majority of this section of the game, Futaba has always been under the belief that her mom. Oh, right. This section of the game talks about a lot of deep stuff. So if stuff like of the topics aren't your thing, just skip this section and this discussion. I'll go right to the boss fight. So basically, Futaba believed that her mother killed herself because of her, and a bunch of people told her so. But after a bit of realizing stuff, Futaba realizes that she was lied to and everything. But before all this, the gang is trying to take the treasure, which is the sarcophagus. Because, you know, the thieves will take anything that... Because we've already stolen a crown, artwork, money. So, yeah, everything makes sense. And, the sarcophagus is empty. And then we hear a giant roar while we're at the top of the pyramid, and something's breaking down the walls. And it's basically Futaba's mother as a goddamn sphinx, showcasing the deep-seated mind of cognition of what she saw her mother as someone that's blaming her for her death and something that's mad at her. And think about it. What better creature to protect a pharaoh's tomb than a giant sphinx? I will give credit, though. When I first played the game, again, I had no clue until like years later, and I watched the anime and I watched other people play it because I was stuck. Because until this point, we've had to fight the shadows of the owners. Kamoshida, Kaneshiro, Madarame. We've had to fight their shadows because it's their palace. But here we're actually battling a cognitive creation of Futaba's about her mother. I think I've gone on long enough about this. And the boss fight is absolutely fantastic. It starts off flying in the distance, so we can't hit it. We can't do shit, but this thing can attack us. So the first time we try to fight this thing, obviously it's an insta-lose situation for us until Futaba analyzes the scenario and gives us a goddamn ballista, where one of our team members will have to shoot at the creature to bring it down for us to attack it. Now, I do love what they implemented here, and as a flying boss, it does really well. Constantly being in the air until we bring it down, and even taking off into the sky to do a massive skydive attack, where we will have to buff up our defense and guard for a couple turns. It does get a little tricky, but once you get the pattern down pat, And also she'll do a couple claw swipes and everything. So as a boss in the Persona series, it does very little. It does a lot different from other bosses. For example, it doesn't have a secondary, it doesn't change forms or anything. It doesn't have a lot of extra defenses. It's just the flying gimmick, and I do love it. Oh, but yeah, as a boss, it's terrifying. As a flying boss, it's great. And as a great way to branch the gap between Futaba and her memories, it's a good representation of what people can conceive about people and how it can grow into being a monstrous threat to your own mind. Next up. Okay, this one I'm going a little bit backwards into an old Wii game I used to play. Code Lyoko Quest for Infinity. Loved it as a kid. As I got older, I realized somewhat of the faults with parts of the game. And how it's basically you just, whatever. But in terms of a flying boss, there's only one in the game that I really like, and that is going into the 4-sector replica's supercomputer with the Insect Lord. And yes, I'm saying it as it's spelled, Insect Lord. Which, I do like that each supercomputer has their own little monster that we have to combat that isn't just a giant version of whatever monster Xana made. And I do love it. This one is a giant plant that's surrounded by a cavern that we can't go to. So long distance users must be used, which is good because that's all we get. It starts out by spinning a whole bunch of these little hornet monsters, which we will have to destroy and then damage the eye in the center of the giant plant. It will also knock down a stone that we will have to use Yumi's telekinetic abilities to move before we can damage it more. Damage it halfway, and it dies, allowing for the real Insect Lord to appear, which is this mantis-looking creature, and I love it to death. I love the design. I love the way we have to fight it as it's flying throughout the entirety of the boss fight, as it will slash at us with its...
Mantis has those thingies.
It's a mantis boss. I'm not going to let that joke go to waste. Where it will slash at us, and it will also do a charge attack with the blades and slice at us afterwards. So being precise on its movements is kind of important, but at the same time, it's kind of a quick boss fight if you've been upgrading your character's damage and cooldown period for special abilities. So it doesn't really take a genius to figure out the boss fight, but it is an absolute joy. And the way it dies is great, as it tries to hold on to the crevice and then it falls into the crevice itself. Again, really cool boss fight. One of my favorites from the Code Lyoko games. So yeah, I haven't talked about it for a while, so I'm kind of glad. Let's continue on to the next list, and hopefully, as this list goes up, these bosses are gonna fly even higher. Okay, seriously, can we get better jokes for this list? Well, talked about him a couple months ago. Still one of my favorite boss fights from the game. And to the way it implements flight is somewhat lazy, but also ingenious. If there's ever a Psychonauts 3, I can't wait to see what the boss fights and the levels are going to look like. I am, of course, talking about from Psychonauts 1, Jasper Rolls, the main threat of Gloria's theater level, which, like I stated earlier in my ranking video, that he's basically her inner critic who's become very narcissistic and puts down the performances in order so Gloria can't move on with her life, constantly belittling, commenting about every performance. And as the boss fight starts, his giant theater box starts lifting up with giant pens as weapons as he shoots out words at us. And again, the boss fight is great. Battling us on the stage as he's flying around in his chair, still showcasing that even though this is a boss fight, Jasper believes that he is still on high. Because again, box seats are always the higher up sections while watching a theater. So even though we're fighting him, he believes that he is higher and superior to us. So I really enjoy that, actually. I really do enjoy. I don't think that symbolism was kind of intentional, but at the same time, I'm glad it was. Also, the fact that we got to use our thought bubble to ride the wind to go up, higher up in the theater, to use the light on him. It's such a great boss fight, and I've talked about it a lot in my ranking video, so this one's going to be a little bit short. So yeah, Jasper rules. He's a great a-hole of a character. Great boss fight. Great in terms of utilizing a critic's abilities to hurt people with words as a boss fight. But again, as a flying boss, he's a little bit better than the ones on the lower half of the list. But the fact that he just kind of sits there with his jet chair and everything, so it's not used as well as other bosses on this list. Voiced by one of my favorite voice actors, Steve Bloom. From another old game, Shadow Dimensions Spider-Man, we've got the Hobgoblin. Every Spider-Man needs one. Oh, like, just to hear that voice, not just from the Green Goblin of Spectacular, but to be the Hobgoblin for this game, and a cybernetic futuristic one at that, makes this boss, and I'm counting all of Hobgoblin, Hobby's interactions within his level, where we first have to fight him, basically where he throws his pumpkin bombs at us as he's still circling in the air, and we gotta redirect those and missiles at him. And then there's the fall sections where we basically just punch him out and dodge his attacks and make him land on his wings. And the design of him alone makes him a great boss fight, and especially for this list. Not giving him a glider and instead giving him goblin-like gargoyle wings was a stroke of genius for whoever was into the design department. And then we get to his big boss fight where he uses his psi powers with the rock as he creates copies of himself and also a giant form of him that kind of throws us off our game a little bit. And again, him flying around the area, and we have to counterattack his skydives and his swipes, and plus the mind games that he plays on us. Again, even more spectacular. And even after we beat him, he takes us for one last ride as we do the fall section again, where we have to, again, dodge and combat him. Utilizing not just the wing, his flight, but also the fall of us, the fall sections, in order to keep us, basically making us forcefully go down with him. It's such a great boss fight. It's done very well. It's got a great motif. The design is great. He's not in the air. He's in the air a lot, but again, just like Jasper, a lot of bosses on this list use the flying system a little bit better than just hovering kind of mid-air with us. But again, still a great boss fight. Well, I couldn't avoid this one for that long. From Spyro, Year of the Dragon, I'm talking about both versions a little bit. Anyone else, when you were a kid, were you guys scared of this boss fight and you didn't want to fight him at night? Because I was one of those people. And then the remaster came out and made it look not as terrifying. Yeah, that's not my only problem with the Reignited trilogy. They made all the boss fights from number 3 look less scarier than they are supposed to be and made them more goofy. I hope that wasn't intentional. But yeah, for flying bosses, you guys know who I'm talking about. No, actually, it's not the Twin Dragons. I refuse to put those guys on a good list. I am talking about Scorch from the Scorch's Pit section. Here's the remastered version where, again, it looks like a giant mutated bat thing with shorts. And here's the original version, which looks like, oh, dear God! Yeah, if Josh Scorcher thinks that the bosses from the Kirby games are terrifying enough, okay, to be fair, they kind of are. But at the same time, Scorch is even scarier, especially in the original version where he just looks like this monstrous bat that is just evil. And the fact that the atmosphere of a dead shark's body and we're in a pit of acid. And then the remaster just kind of ruins it with all the bright colors and making the camera angles better. But he does the same things. He sends out eggs of enemies at us. We shoot rockets at him. And he even creates a force field around him so he doesn't get damaged that much. And he stays afloat the entirety of the boss fight, even when he's hit. So it's not like he gets down and then he gets back up or anything. He's fully in flight the entire battle. And again, as he's flying and and he can also send out giant electrical balls throughout the arena in order to damage us. So you really got to be on your toes. Again, I prefer the original one because it was a lot more terrifying. The controls were a lot less stiff, I want to say. But overall, Scorch, still a great boss, still a great monster. And that's all I got to say. At the time of this video's release, Epic Mickey Rebrush has been released. I will not be getting it. If I ever get the chance to hook up my Wii again, I will definitely replay that one because I love that. I just love the original. But in terms of flying bosses, there's only one that counts on this list. And I'm talking about the fake Phantom Blot that we fight at the top of Mickey Junk Mountain. And this boss had us throughout the entirety of the game, making us believe this was the actual villain. But I digress. I'm not going into a huge story in this one. The Blot, fighting him, it's ironic fighting a creature of our own creation on top of a mountain full of Mickey's merchandise that is basically junk. So we're fighting our own creation on top of creations of us. That's good plot. That's good writing right there. As the Blot will float throughout the entirety of the arena, sending out blotlings at us to attack us. And again, I know I have a criticism about sending enemies to fight us, but he will also charge at us. He'll go up to the sky and body slam us and try to absorb us. He'll throw black ink at us in order to hurt us. And again, two ways of defeating the Blot. Either we can use thinner on him when he's absorbing in order to thin him out and destroy him, or the better option, paint him in so we get a fun little animation at the end of him befriending us. Yeah, Epic Mickey, either hurt your enemies or befriend them. I just wish there were a lot more of it in Epic Mickey 2, and I wish we weren't teased about another game and then it dropped. Like, if you could remaster it, why not just work on another game? Seriously. Well, yeah, fake Phantom Blot, great flying boss, really takes the atmosphere into account. It's really fun. Oh, I talked about this guy a while ago. We're going to the stars for this one as Mega Man Star Force 2. And I've already talked about the bosses. So, yeah, Terra Condor from Star Force 2 is on this list. Once again, great design. I love the Condor aesthetic for the Nazca line. And then turning into a jet Condor. Great idea. And the boss fight itself is great. Instead of being on the ground, Condor is flying throughout his section of the field, sending in littler Condors to attack us as he flies through the air, and then he'll come back and shoot lasers at us down the columns. He'll do a crash attack where he comes flying in. And I thought this boss fight was going to be one of the ones that is really hard to do, considering I didn't know, because there is no air elemental weakness. Until one accidental attack and I find out he's wood element. The giant jet flying Condor is a wood attribute boss. Well, it makes as much sense as anything else in this game, or any game, to be honest. So, I really admire the creativity there. Again, short section, great boss fight, great character, great use of the shaman of Lazapa. Great usage of it. Great, again, another great flying boss on the list. I'm pretty proud of myself right now. I mean, I've made it through more than half of this list, and I didn't have to mention Kingdom Hearts even once. We're talking about a Kingdom Hearts boss, aren't we? Yeah, I saw that coming. But at least this one's a good one, right? Wait, this is a good one, right? Wait, which Kingdom Hearts game? Oh, thank God. Oh, I thought I had to talk about something from 358 Days. Oh, God. The Storm Rider from the second visit of the Land of Dragons. This thing was epic. First releasing after we somewhat defeat the mysterious fighter on the mountain, this thing comes out of the mountain and just starts flying towards the Imperial City. Great cinematics for the game. Great cinematics. And then the boss fight comes out, and it is even cooler than the design. I mean, both versions, from the remaster to the original. I prefer the original because I like the dark blue aspect of it. But look at these. Great designs. I love that it is a dragon boss, but it's not a traditional dragon. It's got aspects of dragons. It's got the tail with the kind of suction cup looking legs. It's got the winged hands that kind of resemble a wyvern, and the giant head with the giant horns on it. And starting off this boss fight on its back, shut up, don't you even think about doing it. The Storm Rider is an absolute beast of a boss, and as a flying boss, it's even cooler. Hitting its head with our teammates, and it's not dumb. It will send out thunderbolts at us if we stay on too long, but we can also use the hang on as it swoops down to try to knock us off. Even when we're on the ground, we can use the whirlwinds to soar up on its back again. It will clap its feet to drop a bombardment attack on us. It will send out thunder. It will swoop down at us to charge at us, resulting in one of my favorite reaction commands in Kingdom Hearts 2. It will send electrical shots at us through its fingertips. And then it will go to the bridge, create force fields that close in as it charges up an electric cannon from its horns. This thing is a beast. And It's one of my favorite Heartless bosses ever. Like, this can be on any list. Electric boss, dragon boss, flying boss. And the fact when it dies, it almost falls on Mulan and Shang jumps in to save her as its heart disappears and it fades away. That's one of the things I missed in Kingdom Hearts 3 was when we defeated a Heartless boss, we got a death scene of it squirming and twitching and falling, and then the heart was released. Why didn't we get that? Why didn't we get that? All right, we're in the top 3, and these ones are the high flyers of the list. I can't believe I fucking said that. But coming in at number 3 is a little bit cuckoo, as we're going back to one of my favorite games, Puppeteer, where we are battling with one of the last generals we fight, General Rooster. This cockerel is absolutely batshit insane, and his boss fight utilizes that to the full extent. Fighting at the top of the clock tower that controls dreams, with Mr. Pink the Flamingo as the new hand. Hey, I said it was my favorite game. I didn't say it made sense. As General Rooster is fighting us. Absolutely, like, when I first played this game about 10 years ago, I was playing it and I was wondering, okay, what's a rooster gonna be like to fight? And they did not disappoint. Having his talons go aflame as he stomps on us, he can take sections of the ground out and push it to us, resulting in hitting us and almost killing us. We have to use our hook ability in order to bring down the thing that's around his neck in order to hit him. We follow him up through his feathers and clip his wings, literally. And as it happens, he'll send out torrents of fire at us with whirlwinds. And again, the boss fight itself just has this cool atmosphere and this cool design of a giant rooster fighting us, but he uses fire. So it's almost like the rooster has become a bit of a phoenix a little bit, especially in the last QTE section. Again, Puppeteer being one of my favorite games and Rooster being number 3 on the list. Yeah. And again, he's never on the ground. He's never on the ground. He's always flying in midair, attacking us and utilizing that advantage to its fullest in this game. Oh boy, we get to talk about the Arkham series again. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm talking about from Arkham Origins, one of the best boss fights in the game, Firefly. It is an absolute spectacle. Having Firefly holding people hostage on the bridge with threats of explosives being put on them. Having us actually fighting him as he's in with his jetpack and his flamethrower and his fire bombs. All the while he's still midair. Throwing batarangs at him, throwing our new glue grenades at him in order to gummy up his jets. Where afterwards we shoot our back claw at him and tangle on him where he will bring us on a ride. And the boss has multiple phases of areas, so we'll have to be really cautious of where we are because he'll throw his fire bombs at us. He'll flamethrower us. He'll attack us. And this is what I love about the Firefly fight. He stays airborne the entire fight. And it's a lot of it's cinematic. From the last time we hook him onto us, where he tries to throw us onto the ground or the bridge. And we just knock him down to earth. And I could talk about this boss fight so long, but it's simplistic in the best way possible. They took such a simple idea and they made a grand spectacle of it for a boss fight. Something that the Arkham Knight game did not do with us for Firefly. Yeah, I wish I could erase that moment from us. But you know what? I have the memories of Arkham Origins, so that's enough. And I'm hoping once Arkham Shadows, I think it's called. Hopefully once that's done, they'll focus on another sequel for the Arkham Origins. And maybe we'll get more from that. Hopefully. But now that all of the bottom few are done, it's what flying boss takes the #1 spot and rules the skies. I had to think long and hard about this. Firefly was almost my #1 pick, but this next boss came in from a game that was a couple of years, actually a DLC boss. Is absolutely the high flyer of this list. A DLC boss beats out all these other bosses in the sky. And honestly, it was a dog fight that was absolutely fantastic. I am talking about the team of the Howling Aces from Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course. A dogfight with aerial military canines. And each one does something unique and fun. And it takes the aspect, and I'm glad that it's not an aerial boss fight where we have to do Cuphead with a plane. I'm glad we didn't, because what they did better is us being on a plane platform. And it makes it so much better. From the bulldog fighter in his plane, he'll also come out and his tattoos will shoot out at us. To shooting tennis balls at us. And then to have the little pupper squad, the little yipper pupper squad attacking us in phase 2 as they circle us. Fun fact, secret boss fight. If you defeat them with all, the puppers have very little health. So when you damage them, you'll notice that some of them will have the color of their smoke will fade. So if you have all 4 of them have their smoke gray, they will go into the giant wiener dog aerial copter, whatever, and assist the female dog in the final bit of the fight. That's the secret. Also, they keep yelling "arf" at us. Okay, full disclosure, I feel a bit of an idiot. In the Cuphead bosses when they have their death scene, and they have a little fun quote that taunts you. If you die at the puppers, they say in military code, "Affirm Roger Fox." So it's "Affirm Roger Fox, affirm Roger Fox." And okay, I know that's like the military alphabet when you want to use, say, letters and stuff for short when you're identifying something. Okay. I'm just to reiterate how much of an idiot I am. I'm just gonna put those there. Affirm Roger Fox. It spells ARF. So they're saying ARF ARF in military speak. I felt like a goddamn idiot. No, full disclosure, it didn't take me until a year of beating the Delicious Last Course to figuring that out. I'm not kidding. But if you defeat the puppers Then you have to fight again, the final one as she's commanding the giant dog copter. And it will grab the screen and shoot lasers at you, and it will turn the screen on sideways. And sending dog dishes, ones that will go on the upper half and one that will go on the lower half. So you really gotta freaking pay attention because they're color coded, but because the dog copter flips the screen sideways, it really F's you up. So you really gotta be careful. But you take down, you complete this boss fight, and you get the pineapple mint ingredient. And these dogs are taken to the pound. Or discharged. Whatever military joke. And just the concept alone. A dog fight with literal dogs in the sky. And each one has their own motif. A bulldog fighter in his plane that the puppers are in. The puppers in their jetpacks just arfing at you. And then the giant dog copter with the commander that's all kind of prissy. Like a prissy little shih tzu. From motif to execution to just a goddamn fun fight in the sky. The Howling Aces deserve to be my number one pick for flying bosses. Well deserved. And that's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for September. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining in. Like, comment, subscribe down below. What bosses that take to the air do you find that are really interesting? And I'm not talking about flying type gym leaders in Pokemon because they really don't even fly in the air, or there's no real cool animations for that, so those are out. I take a week break because there's 5 weeks in October, so I'll be taking the first week to relax and get everything composed. But join me next time, ladies and gentlemen, as Villain Month is back in the Game Hub. And to start it off, I'm going to be trying not to laugh at one of my favorite YouTubers because it's the spooky season. Let's see if I can refrain from laughter of him being terrified via gameplay. This is Gamer K, logging out.